Hello, happy noontime on this Thursday, May 26th. Welcome to another Wake Illinois Convo with a Candidate. Today we are joined by Matt Dubiel, and we're going to have a discussion. Why is a dad of four running for U.S. Senate? So thanks to everybody for tuning in, and thanks, Matt, for joining the discussion and for sharing your time. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. This is great. This is where it's happening. This is what I'm seeing. The moms like you that are leading tribes and organizing efforts are the ones that are they're making it happen and making sure people are informed, because the rest of the world isn't really paying that much attention to what's going on.
I know, right? Apathy is our greatest threat. But you know what? I think people have begun an awakening over the last 2 years, don't you think? And so we'll get into what issues people are talking to you about. But first, why don't you just introduce, yourself, talk a little bit about your background, and we'll delve into what brought you to run for U.S. Senate.
Thanks. I'm a dad, father of four. We have four kids. Michelle and I have been married. We're going to be celebrating 21 years in July. In fact, I just heard the car pull in. She just got back from field day for Stella. Stella's our 10-year-old. Yeah. I'm usually at field days. These days, I'm at less of that kind of stuff just because it's go time for all of us right now. But I work for myself. So I'm a small business owner. And because of that, I've been able to spend a lot of time with the kids. And I've been at the field days and I've been in the schools, and we devoted a lot of time as Clow parents here in the Naperville 204 district, DJing school dances and sock hops and getting involved. And we're noticing some things have changed over the years. And so over the last couple of years, specifically, and thanks to you and our awareness of Tom DeVore, we hired Tom and we jumped into the lawsuit against Pritzker for our children to be mask-free in school. And that was a big awakening. And we were a little nervous about doing that. Only because I've been in the forefront of this stuff for a while, and I've been very vocal, and I'm not afraid to be canceled. They can't cancel me because I work for myself, and I can handle it. But the children and Michelle and everybody else are a different situation. And so we hired Tom, and Tom liberated the children, or the parents really did, via Tom and via awareness through you. And since then, I decided to get activated as a candidate because there's nobody, I looked at this field running for United States Senate, there's nobody talking about really the issues that are facing families and children and parents in the schools, and really tying them into all these other issues that we all care so much about. So I quit my job and I jumped into the U.S. Senate race.
It's really amazing, and I give you a lot of credit, and also your family. It's a whole family decision when you become a public figure and you begin taking a stand on any number of issues. So I salute you and your family and all candidates who take that leap.
Me too, yeah.
So thank you for that. And so you have four children. What are their ages?
I'll start with Anthony, who just turned 20 this week. He was the test monkey for all of us. You know how that goes when you have the first kid, like you're figuring it out.
Right.
Anthony,
baptism by fire, right?
Totally. And, you don't know what you don't know. And then, so he's number one. Number two is Natalie. She's about to turn 18. She just graduated. Well, she's graduating from high school. The last day was a couple of days ago. And so graduation and 18th birthday all happening at once. In fact, she was just nice enough to grab this coffee for me before this live. She's such a sweetheart. And she just went and they had the practice for commencement. Interestingly enough, they gave them this sheet with the details of the commencement. But then she said to me, Dad, and we talk, the kids and I talk, and Michelle and the kids talk about everything. We're blessed that they tell us about what's going on. Natalie said, Dad, it was kind of weird. They gave us the sheet about graduation. And she said, then they handed me my immunization record. So at the school practice for graduation from high school, they handed her the commencement instructions for the graduation ceremony at Northern Illinois. That's where they're having it. Big school, lots of kids, lots of parents and stuff. And then they handed her, and I'm not going to flip it around, but they handed her her immunization record. Little strange.
Very bizarre.
She's not, an animal leaving the zoo, but it
No.
kind of feels that way a little bit when they're handing this paper. So Natalie's number 2. Rocco is 15. He's a freshman at the freshman campus. And then Stella is 10. She had her field day today. And we schlep ourselves and her every morning all the way out to Aurora Christian to keep her to keep her free and to keep her mind pure and to keep her from being indoctrinated and forced to mask and all that stuff. And that's ending also.
Right. Yeah. And I can tell you're a very involved father, and your wife, Michelle, is a very involved mom. You're in the thick of it with 4 kids, and your Facebook Live that you did, that I believe you posted to your Senate Facebook page, was really enlightening, even for me, even though I've talked to you before about some of these issues. And we live in the same community. It was very enlightening for me because you have children who are older.
Yeah.
And so you've seen kind of a shift in the culture and society and in education particularly. So I think that's really insightful, and people should take a look at that live, because you really covered a lot of really good information on that from a perspective of a parent. So what, I know your big issues right now: education, due process, liberty. Behind you, it says "We the People" on that board. Who couldn't get behind that, right? Government of the people, by the people, for the people. So what are you hearing from the people right now as you campaign? I know you're hustling. You're putting a lot of road time in to go to events and connect with people throughout Illinois. What are you hearing on the campaign trail in terms of concerns?
And it's inverted, but it also says "We the parents" underneath that. And,
Oh, it does. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm in the way.
I can see it. I can see it.
So I'm not hearing enough about the parents. Now I'm hearing it a little bit from the parents, but inside the blue sort of zones that have eked out into Naperville, and I grew up in Downers Grove, and Downers Grove has a lot of issues with District 99 and pornography in their schools and CRT and stuff.
Yeah, we have a chapter, an Awake chapter there, that's very organized, and they're really, tackling that. So I'm familiar.
Yeah. And so I grew up there, and the schools weren't like that there, and the community wouldn't have stood for it back in the 80s and the 90s. They would have been with one voice in a nonpartisan way. They would have said, wait a minute, this isn't right. And that's changed over the years. So what I'm hearing from parents, and I met another Awake chapter last night. I was in Utica, and there's a McNabb. They have a meetup. In fact, I think I'm going to go there tomorrow. There's an Awake chapter there. I'm seeing Awake chapters. So to start off with, I'm bumping into or seeing Awake shirts all over the place.
I love it.
It's really cool. I think I sent you a picture, one that I saw at Bridgeview at a very Polish family event, and that was awesome to see last night in Utica. So the parents and the moms are plugged in. And when I start talking about some of the issues that we've been through and are on our radar and your radar and a lot of the moms' radars, the moms perk up like, oh, we're not hearing this from other people. So that's exciting. And that's been really motivating for me. Now, inside the blue zone here where we all live, not so much. And so everyone else is focused on the economy and inflation and all of these typical wedge issues that people talk about. I think they're all tied together. And I think that there's not a lot of discussion from any of these other candidates in all the races enough. I mean, with the exception of Tom DeVore, of course, talking about the kids.
But because he fought for due process for families.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of focus, and the Tribune and the Daily Herald and these media outlets, when they ask us questions, they bombard you as a candidate. And you got to fill out basically the same questionnaire for all these outlets. They're asking about Russia and Ukraine. They're never asking about the kids. They're never covering CRT. They're never covering medical freedom. And they're really not talking about the indoctrination in our schools. I even did an interview on the radio in Southern Illinois the other day, and I posted it. And this guy, it was on a news talk station, and this guy was attacking me as if CRT isn't happening, as if furries aren't a thing, as if, this division isn't happening in our schools. And parents know that it is.
Right. And the first rule of practicing CRT is you never talk about practicing CRT, right? So that's a common, deflection tactic, but we know it's happening. And the reason we know that too, and it stood out to me at the gubernatorial panel discussion, and the question was brought up to candidates Sullivan, Bailey, and Rabine, that question of what is CRT? So
Yes.
for a governor to be asked about it clearly, and we've seen throughout the country this topic of, what I call race hustling. That's my opinion. It's very divisive. You're seeing it permeate across the country. So do you think it's possible, Matt, that there could be legislation brought forth in coming years, depending on who's, active in government at the top levels, that may in fact affect, curriculum such as CRT?
If we continue on the course that we're going on, I don't think there's a snowball's chance, and you know what, for that to happen. I don't think that Dick Durbin, and ultimately that's why I got into it. And then I looked at this field of candidates that were running supposedly as Republicans for the nomination. There's 5 or 6 of them, and they're not talking about it. So the people in office aren't talking about it. The candidates aren't talking about it. We all know that the first step of things is like addressing the problem so that you can then say, hey, we have a problem. So I think that, maybe a Rand Paul and Jim Jordan and some of these people may address it, but somebody's got to go there and really hammer this stuff and tie it into also our medical freedom and the economy, because it's all going to be tied together eventually, whether we like it or not.
Right, for sure. Yeah, that's the most frustrating thing is when I think candidates, talk about, to your point, the topics of pain at the pump, inflation. I mean, those are layup issues. Even crime, like who wants crime in their communities? Who wants to have to pay more out of pocket than we already are? The high taxes, that's kind of a layup. But it's amazing to me how particularly conservatives have stayed away from these very, I hate to use the word, but it's true, emotional subjects and topics where parents have very real concerns, and they have a target on their back the minute that they question this type of ideology, right? Because that's what it is. It's an ideology.
Yeah. It is. And it's becoming a religion of sorts, like the faux science that they're pushing in the name of science. And so, I mean, the short answer to your question about do we have a chance is if I'm representing us, which I'm only doing for one term, I'm only running one time, this is it. If I get in, and when I get in, that will be my focus, and we absolutely will be beating the drum, and I will be on with Tucker or CNN or C-SPAN or whatever it takes until that's addressed, and making sure that we not only adjust what the course, but start to investigate the bad actors and manipulators. And that starts with Fauci. That goes down to Lightfoot and Pritzker and ESSER funds and shield testing and following the money of all that stuff, and who got paid and how and why they manipulated our children and our families in the name of safety. And it's evil, actually.
It is. And I've called it a war on children, and they were used as pawns, and there were a lot of politics behind it. So I'm glad to hear that you're ready to take that lead when you get elected. So you mentioned the moms, and a lot of people reference Virginia with Youngkin being elected. Moms there were actually, I saw a fabulous interview, it might have been CNN, MSNBC, where they were talking to moms who had voted for Biden in the presidential election, but who voted for Youngkin because their children came before their party line. And I have to tell you, you say that certain people in the blue zones don't talk about it. From what I'm hearing is there are a lot of orphan Democrats, and they're not going to say to their super liberal friends that, they question Pritzker, they question, even some of the more liberal, perhaps Rhino candidates. They're just staying silent, and they're probably going to have a silent vote at the ballot because they don't want to be ostracized by going against party loyalty, right? Yeah. But I think it'll be a very interesting turnout probably for the primary, and it'll be interesting to see the demographics of who pulls a Republican ballot, because like you said, the mama bears are mad, and it transcends party line. It just comes down to the best of opportunities for our children.
Well, and it always should, don't you think? I mean, this affiliation and association with parties, I get where people get into their teams and stuff, and it's happening a little bit with the governor candidates, even among conservatives. Sure. Everyone's getting real tribal, and at the end of the day, we need what's best. We need the right things, and there's some things that we can pretty much all agree on that are just the right things. And I understand there's some parents out there that maybe, and grandparents that are thinking, well, this isn't real, or there's no CRT, or there's no this, or there's no that. They need to start talking to the students. Natalie went back to in-person learning. I think it was the first day, and I could get the timeline because we all know these last 3 years it's hard to keep things straight, right? In the order of things.
Yeah.
But these events happened, and Natalie went back to school. I said, how was it? I was so excited to hear because she was geared up for it. And they're all going back with masks. She said, Dad, we went around the room in our classes and they asked us what our pronouns were. This is in high school in America. This kind of hokey, hocus pocus, 70s, what's your sign kind of attitude. Like, we don't go around the room and say, hey, what's your zodiac sign? And, and ask kids that. But they went around the room and they did it in 3 or 4 classes in her day. Now, maybe that's not codified in the curriculum, but somebody needs to know that's happening, and that stuff needs to be rooted out. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So these parents and grandparents that think this stuff isn't happening, they have to understand it's happening in the discussions. Sometimes It's happening in English class. Natalie had to write a paper on George Floyd. Right. Now, as though it was one of these papers where it's like, is he a hero or is he a victim? And it's like, how about he's just a moment in time and where something happened, and let's look at all of what happened. But their sources that they were supposed to use for that paper were CNN and ABC. Okay. They weren't given a choice of other sources. And I'm not saying they should be using Fox News either. Fox News has problems. They all do. And so, but it's happening in schools, and parents need to really wake up to that, grandparents especially, because our parents, that age, those people, they didn't put up with this kind of stuff, and they know better. And some of us need to listen to our parents if we're in denial about it.
That's true. Yeah, no, it definitely is happening, and it's happening in the classroom walls. It doesn't come home. So it is up to parents and grandparents and loved ones to really engage with their students, with the kids, and what's happening in the classroom, because there's a lot of activism, right? And unfortunately, based on the state report card in Illinois, the academics have been faltering for some time. So the kids need academics first, not activism, in my opinion.
100%.
So in terms of, obviously there's a lot of room for reform with education, with our culture. But what are some other topics? I mean, you're going up against the incumbent, Tammy Duckworth, and we're coming up on Memorial Day this weekend. We salute our veterans. We're grateful for her service and that of all, the servicemen and women who defend our country. What are you hearing in terms of, the veterans of our country and of our state? Because I know that's been kind of a part of her platform for which she's received some criticism. So can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, there's these 2 schools of thought that I've noticed. One is, what are somebody's qualifications to run? And then once they find those out, then they diminish or dismiss those qualifications. And then they want to know, well, did you serve, or are you a woman, or are you a man? And then they want to do identity qualifications. Sure. And it's very strange how that works. When we went out, so Michelle and I went to the truck stop convoys, we went to parades, and we grassroots got signatures to get on the ballot. A lot of people may not know you need thousands of signatures to just get permission to run in the ballot in the first place.
A lot of work, yeah.
And these establishment candidates have all these groups that do it for them and help them. We just did it. And we had some moms that helped us and gathered some sheets. Michelle and I personally got thousands each. And there were 2 scenarios with veterans that I experienced personally. 5% of the veterans, roughly, would just turn and walk the other way when I told them I was running against Duckworth. They said, wow, she's a veteran. I'm a veteran. We're veterans. Okay. And I left them be. The other 95%, maybe more, 95 at least, came over, signed my petition, got their veteran buddies to sign the petition. And their message to me was, she's not doing anything for us veterans. And they told me some stories. I just talked with a guy, and I'm not going to say his name, but I ran commercials on WLS, and he texted me from my commercial. And he texted me yesterday. I called him today, and he is a disabled veteran. He's 100% disabled. He's only a few years older than me. Wow. And he said that he reached out to Tammy Duckworth and asked for some help with some very specific issues for him personally, and then legislation. And her office told him that she was too busy with her book tour and she couldn't deal and work with him and talk to him. He's never heard from her or her office. So if the person that is the veteran, that is a disabled veteran, isn't servicing and there for the disabled veterans, I think that we got to cross that off. And I also have to tell you, and everybody else paying attention to this, the GOP, and I used to think the Democratic Party and the liberals were that was the problem in Illinois. It's the GOP also. And they're still running and saying things like, you have to be a female to run against Tammy, and you have to be an ex this or an ex that to run against Tammy. I come from a different perspective altogether, where I just think we have to find the right people for all the jobs, whoever they are, and put them in there, and they will represent whoever. Just because Tammy maybe isn't a grandmother doesn't mean that she's not going to represent grandparents. But just because she's a veteran doesn't mean that she's representing veterans. And I'm hearing from the veterans that they're not being served by our representation. And we already know parents aren't being served by our representation from Durbin and Duckworth.
Interesting. Speaking of women, Wake, Illinois, we put out a coalition letter to Secretary Miguel Cardona, Secretary of Education, U.S. Department of Education, regarding our concerns on Title IX, the sex discrimination rules. I really haven't looked to see if Duckworth has had any comment on that, but I don't know if your daughters are in sports or if you're seeing this trickle down yet through the high school level, but do you find that people are worried about sort of this cultural shift that we are seeing in sports, in education, in the country, where people say, women's sports might be at risk?
I don't understand this concept that people that say they're for women would then diminish what a woman is, and can't define what a woman is. And it's a nonsensical distraction. We have to pay attention to it. I'm not trying to diminish our attention to it, but the fact that we have to talk about something so fundamentally scientific. Sex is for procreation, and nature treats it makes it, enjoyable for all animals, so that we are tricked into procreating. That's the whole gag. So all these other elements of that are fodder or distraction. And I understand that there are some people that may be confused or maybe feeling differently. I'm pretty sure most people, especially the people that are out there vocal about this stuff, would agree that we want those individuals treated with compassion and respect. What we can't do is normalize dysfunction and normalize, in some cases, mental illness. And I'm not saying that all people that feel that way are mentally ill, but when we begin to normalize mental illness, then we can't address it. And then you have other issues that happen where, some of these school shootings and other things where there are earmarks and red flags that are coming up for human beings that let you know they need special attention. And we are normalizing this sort of stuff. So boys should only be in boys' bathrooms. Girls should only be in girls' bathrooms. A boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. I don't want any girls or any boys anywhere near my girls. And if maybe there should be something separate for those people to compete in. But we have to get back to common sense and reality here, and science. What happened to science?
Right. I know, right? Biology. Well, to be good at math is racist in some people's philosophy. And so I guess to be good at biology, maybe also it's bad. No, I think we've lost our minds. I say that all the time. We've lost our minds. So yeah, I'm a believer we need to protect women's sports, and women are women. And yes, where are all the women's lib? Where are they? They're silent, and it drives me crazy.
This should be another one of those issues where everybody gets together and we go, hey, just team reality, like forget about all this other stuff. And we could argue about maybe, firearms or abortion or whatever it is later, but let's agree that our girls should never be uncomfortable in a setting where, remember changing in gym class in general in high school? Like how many people just didn't shower,
Exactly.
You just are like, I don't want to deal with it. So high school's tough enough. School's tough enough. We need to protect them.
And it goes both ways. I've heard of school districts not far from here where they have had girls who have been saying they want to go into the boys' bathroom because they feel like they are boys, and it's making the boys very uncomfortable. But for some reason in our society, the school districts are saying, well, we have to adjust everybody else's environment to suit and accommodate that person when they have gender neutral bathrooms, by the way. So we've lost our dang minds. I'm hoping that the pendulum will swing back to common sense.
Speaking of Downers Grove, where I grew up, when I was in high school, the boys' bathrooms had the doors removed on the stalls. So if you needed to take a little bit more time in there to do the other thing, you had to sit there with no doors on.
Oh my word.
That was what was going on. Now, we rewind to maybe the 50s or 60s. I have aunts and uncles that went to high schools where the boys had to swim naked in gym class. Yes, Google it. Everyone should, don't take my word for it. This was the way that it was during a period of time. So the schools have no idea what should be done. They are a function of they should be serving us and working for us. And the parents, make the bathrooms so they're all like family style, like they are at certain places, so people can go in by themselves. There's other solutions
Sure.
because pretty much the boys don't really want to be in there with the boys either, and the girls don't really want to be in there with the girls. So let's make it easy on them.
Well, why not use ESSER funds? We've got what, $5 billion coming.
Yeah.
Maybe start retrofitting bathrooms so that nobody has to worry about aerosol spray among a group. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, they may need to use those ESSER funds to protect the children while they're in the school, so that we don't have these events like are happening in Texas and around the country. Right. But I have a feeling they're not going to try and earmark those for anything. They're just going to keep paying their development director of exclusivity or inclusivity or whatever these titles are that they're putting in each of these schools and paying their friends off.
Bloat. Yeah. Administrator bloat. Yeah. So you touched on a couple different issues. What have we not covered that you think needs light based on what you're hearing on the campaign trail with your run for U.S. Senate, your data for you've left your full-time job to take this leap, you and your family?
People want to talk about the economy. And my message to everyone lately is, and I don't have like a political advisor or campaign managers or consultants, but if I did, I think they would be like, oh, you got to focus on the economy and you got to talk about this. My concern for all of us is, as the economy continues to get bad, and it's going to get worse, and it's not because of Russia and it's not because of the Ukraine. It's because of our government getting in the way and shutting things down. And then, you don't shut the economy down for a virus that 99% of people survive no matter what they do. But they did that. So, but as it gets worse and as supply chain issues get worse, we're going to be more vulnerable to draconian controls on our health and leverage. And really what this is about is leverage. You say a lot, you can't cancel me. And that's like a mantra, right? For Awake Illinois, can't cancel us. Well, more and more people, what I experienced during this whole pandemic was not enough people were standing up early. And what I found is they weren't because they could be canceled or blacklisted, or there could be retribution at their nursing job or their teaching job.
Right.
And the leverage on people is going to get even more profound. So that's why now parents, I believe, really have to stand up, because our medical freedom, the fact that Natalie's getting her immunization record at graduation handed to her, the fact that immunization is going to be made digital, our currency is going to be made digital, our lives are being made digital, all that is coming together, and Costco and Apple and Tesla and Twitter and all these companies are going to start working together. And people are not really looking at ESG, which is environmental social governance, which is where how you comply and how your bank complies. Really, it's social credit for companies. So your bank, Apple, big companies, iHeartRadio, they all participate. And when they participate, they're going to want us to participate. And you and I are going to get credit for doing good Facebook Lives and not talking about bad stuff. And when that happens, and when they start implementing requirements for everything, monkeypox, you name it, our controls are going to be even more stringent. And so that's why, to me, even people that are concerned about the economy, you have to really be thinking about our medical freedom and our children, because they have to understand what America's about, how it works. Mandates aren't laws. Companies don't rule people. And then we have to stand up for our bodies, because you can't undo some of the stuff that's going to be tried to be forced on us, with us saying, please, can we have some baby formula? We need baby formula. Oh, well, you can't post that stuff on Facebook. You have to do this. You have to do that in order to get the baby formula. That's dangerous.
And it's worrisome, because when you talk to people, and, I know you've been in a lot of different areas of Chicago and other communities where you maybe have a lot of immigrant population, the Polish community, people who come from Eastern Europe, who've come from Russia, from China, they see these signs of what is really becoming communist-like government, right? Yep. Where, and it happens, it trickles, right? It was supposed to be 2 weeks. And I remember my husband saying, we were having coffee right here in this room. Everything was quiet. People were starting to put things in their windows to connect with neighbors remotely. And he was saying, don't underestimate how far government will take it if you let them. And sure enough, here we are, and we've seen a lot of government overreach. And it's interesting to hear the immigrant voice, because they don't like what they're seeing in the schools, in government, medical apartheid. I mean, it's very, very worrisome,
Yes.
government overreach. So we, the people, I mean, it's all about liberty, right? And seeing that our children, you mentioned children a lot. That's what, to me, this is all about. Awake
100%.
Illinois, you running grassroots people who are putting their names on the ballots, because we do not want to hand over to our children a government that's more oppressive, right? No. Detrimental to their future.
Yeah, the communities that you talk about are the most American out of
America.
Out of the majority of people, because they're so close to it. I'm like third generation American born, so you get complacent and you take your freedoms for granted. I mean, I don't, because I've been standing up, and part of that is, and in fact, living in Naperville, we've been our families, the children mostly. My kids don't have a lot of friends. And it's hard for them to have friends when the world around them has a bunch of different priorities, and we don't go in for that stuff. Sure. And then we stand up for other things. And what we found in our personal lives is our closest friends, the moms that were around, they're all first generation Americans, because we have the most in common with them and their children. And we love them like they're the best. And some of them. And so then when I go to these groups, like we did this at Bridgeview event where I saw the lady in the Awake shirt, and it's all these beautiful Polish families, and their kids are wearing like their regalia for Polish dancing and stuff. Right. And these people are fiercely American and anti-evil, communist, socialist, everything, because they remember what it was like, and they haven't gotten woke. And a lot of these Americans here and our neighbors have gotten woke, and they think that woke is the thing, and it's not. Awake is the thing.
Well, it's very kind of you. I don't know if you want us to pull up. I had seen you posted on your for U.S. Senate a story that of an encounter with TSA that your son Rocco had. I don't know if you want to touch on that. I found it to be pretty impactful, or we can just have people go look at it. But what's interesting to this whole point, and this was, what year was this that this happened?
It actually happened, and you're welcome to if you want to and you have time. It happened in 2010, and I was incensed about it. And then we got to Disney. It was a trip on the way to Disney. And then you know how it goes. You go on vacation, and then you like get back and you kind of get over it. And then I put it away. And then I went and I was going through family videos with my oldest, Anthony, and he was maybe 10 or 12 at the time. And we saw it, and I went, oh my gosh, like I forgot about this. And we started talking about it, and I was furious that I stood by and allowed this to happen. And I posted it to YouTube in 2012, and I tweeted it out. And the next day, I think it was the next day, we were on the cover of Drudge, Time, every website. We were on CNN and Fox, and we did some interviews because they made it a news item in the 24-hour news cycle. And I can kind of touch on that, but if you want to show it.
I'll just show a little bit of the video so people have context. But this was 10 years ago. And to me, this is very symbolic of government just taking orders, even if it may be absolutely wrong, right?
This is how it started.
And do a special pat down. And I asked for a supervisor because I didn't want anything kind of hanky going on and any special treatment. And this was the process that we had to go through to get him through with his body cast and with his wheelchair. And I felt that it was a bit excessive.
Tell me why it took so long to post this, because this was shot back in 2010, right? And now we're in 2012, obviously.
Yeah, so we got back from vacation and downloaded all this stuff off of our each of our phones and the 3 cameras we brought, and then it was kind of lost and forgotten. And I was looking at some home movies with my oldest son Saturday night, because we just have a new baby in the house, and we were all kind of looking at how everyone looked when they were little and all that. And my son and I watched it Saturday night, and I became incensed, as though I was in the moment again. And I shared other videos online with my family, with me and my kids doing things. And I thought, if I'm sharing those videos, some of them are silly, I need to share this and let people see this and see what happens.
Have you been
so talk to us a little bit about that, Matt, because I think that, this is what has fired up a lot of moms and dads, is this whole concept of government overreach, forcing your kids to test, to quarantine. This was happening 10 years ago on your way to Disney, and you were alarmed by it.
Yeah, this is, we're going to Disney, family vacation. Rocco breaks his leg like the week before, femur. So now, you imagine. And so we had 3 kids were going, and they pulled him aside because he had a wheelchair. And because we won't go through that body scanner thing. I don't know if they had those back then. We still won't go through the body scanners. We always opt for the magnetometer. And so they're swabbing him for explosives. He's 3 years old. They're swabbing him for explosives. And they stood in the way, and they wouldn't let me stand near him. They wouldn't let me touch him. They wouldn't let me, hold his hand or anything. And so I took out my iPhone, and nobody was doing this iPhone stuff back then. Like there weren't even really YouTubers back then. And I just recorded it because I'm like, this is insanity. And Michelle's looking at me like, come on, our parents are waiting. Like, let's just go. And I'm like, no, this is terrible. And they used it in the news cycle. And this is another problem in America, is the news cycle and the media. They used it in the news cycle to say that the TSA had changed these policies, that they hadn't. It wasn't until this came out that other families started showing videos, because this got so much attention. We were on Fox and Friends and all this stuff. It was on every local affiliate. They were showing it in like the nightly news in Vegas and across the country.
Right, and people just felt like this is so obvious common sense. And why are you doing this to a young child?
Yeah. And they were other kids. There were children that were handicapped and disabled that were going through this. And they started sharing their videos, and then elderly people. And then they actually changed the TSA's practices, but they haven't changed them enough. And this is the beginning. This is the same crap that's happening in your school. It may not be literally this, but it's figuratively this, except they're not doing it just to their bodies with masks. They're doing it to their minds with this garbage they're putting in their heads. And they're doing it with these, drills and other things that they're doing at the school. It's disgusting, and it's ritualistic abuse of our children. And most parents don't know. So I was glad that I was there with him, and we could document it and share it with people, because there's tons of stuff like this that are happening every day at school in different ways, and parents have no clue.
No, I know. And you just never know a child's story. What may that child have gone through in the past that type of encounter could be very triggering or traumatic for them. But this is, again, a result of government and, people not, awakening to where your rights and liberties are really, being threatened. Right. But yeah, that video is posted at your Matt for U.S. Senate Facebook page. I want to show people your website so that they can learn more about you. And it is, I don't think it's showing there.
It's mattdubiel.com.
Yeah. Okay. So there it is. And your adorable family. We've never been to Mount Rushmore.
So we take a road trip every year, at least every year. And during COVID, it was even more liberating to do, because, there was nothing to do in Illinois. And then you go to these other places, and it's like, they're free. It's like you stepped into another country. So Michelle has been saying Mount Rushmore for years at this point. And I was kind of like, what are you going to do? You're going to see it once. It was one of my favorite trips. Wow. There's so much to do. The Black Hills are awesome. Mount Rushmore is awesome. I highly recommend it to anybody that can do it. And we went back a second time after that. We loved it so much. So I recommend it highly.
That's cool. And it talks about your family, and you are a cancer survivor.
Yeah. So I pulled my boys out of school before COVID. My 2 boys, Anthony was a senior at the time, and Rocco was in junior high. And I was going through cancer treatment at the time. And it occurred to me that for personal and mortality reasons, I wanted to be around them. I didn't know what was going on. And then also in general, it occurred to me that they weren't around the right people at school, and what was happening at school wasn't going well for them. And I pulled them out. And so I started homeschooling them while I was going through cancer treatment. Wow. And thankfully I made it. It was thyroid cancer, so I have no thyroid. I have to take medication for the rest of my life to replace my thyroid. They say it's the good kind of cancer, which really there's no such thing. Anybody that's been through it knows. Thank God
people, when they get thyroid cancer, don't say that you have the good kind. Is that the wrong thing to say?
Right. Yeah. Well, I met a guy last week that had 2 different kinds of blood cancers, and he's in remission. And so from my perspective, I'm looking at him going like, wow, I thought what I had was serious. Holy cow. you
Right.
know, at least they could take this thing out. They had to go back in and get the lymph nodes out after the fact. So it was never quite out of the woods, but we're out of the woods now, and thank God. And now it's important to use the time I have to do things that are worth doing and not sit around and wait for things to happen to us.
Right. Do you feel that that experience really changed your life's philosophy, and that maybe if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have been making the same decisions?
I think it did. I mean, not immediately. I didn't know what to do. I felt like pulling them out of school was the first thing. And then it definitely did weigh into this decision. This place is temporary. There's, you know, we have a limited amount of time with the people that we love. And some of the stuff that is happening in our world is unfortunately, some of it is going to be inevitable, but we don't have to go along with all of it. And unfortunately in Illinois, there's this attitude that it's a blue state and it's this and it's that. And quite honestly, I was just as inspired, maybe more truly, by you and what you do with your groups and with your school board run. And then in the wake of naysayers and all that sort of stuff, that, you know, all those things kind of factored into it, because after a while, and you know how this goes, after a while, you start to think that everyone around you, you're the only one.
Yeah.
And other people don't think that way. And one of the blessings of this experience was being with Michelle. And we went to the trucker convoy. And, you know, 3 years of feeling like you're all alone as a mom with your kids, e-learning, and then all these battles and stuff, and then work and masks and everything and traveling, and watching my wife, you know, waving to the truckers and joy. And like, yeah, we're, you know, you guys are doing this, and seeing that it was touching. It was emotional. And there's more people out there like that. A lot of them are south of I-80 and a lot of them are west of 53, but they're scattered all over our neighborhoods. And what we really need is the people like you and me that know other people like you and me that stand up for just common sense stuff.
For sure.
To reach out to other people, because we all know people like us. And it's time for us to say, nah, we're not going to allow this porn stuff in schools. We're not going to allow this division with racial stuff in schools. And we're going to stand up for what is good and what is right. And we have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights. And that stuff is good enough.
Absolutely. Amen to that. So Cherokee said here, you're right. My Polish friends and family are the biggest patriots I know. Agnes, yeah. We Polish people experience government overreach firsthand. We need to fight here in America, not to lose it. I mean, that's it, right?
So nowego, Agnes. Dziękuję. That's all I got in Polish. So my grandfather is Polish. His father came here from Poland, and the rest of my family is Italian. So all our traditions are Italian. Unfortunately, we have zero Polish traditions, but Dubiel is Polish, and the Polish people are, and you know, the Italian people, the people from the Balkans, the people from Southern America, South America, and Central America, and Mexico. These people that have experienced this stuff firsthand recently, they know. And you people that are here for generations, talk to your friends that are new here, because they know what America is and what it's worth fighting for. As America falls, so goes the rest of the world.
That's right. Amen to that. I don't know if you want to answer this one, or if you can.
Yeah, let's do that. Thanks for bringing that up, Cassie.
Yeah, Cassie, did you cover the WHO treaty yet? Curious how we can stop that at the federal level.
Okay, so the World Health Organization is not our friend. None of these world government organizations are our friend. This is another thing that is not coming up, but I should have answered this in your question when you said, what are you hearing out there? So I did an event in McHenry, and they asked me about this, and I was delighted. And I did an event last night in Utica, and we talked about the World Health Organization. World Economic Forum and World Health Organization are run by bad actors, and World Health Organization is basically, in my opinion, an arm of China. And they are trying to work on treaties that we all would have to be a part of, people think, where our sovereignty and our health freedom isn't our own anymore. And China runs, China is the puppet hand that's inside the WHO, and then the WHO wants to be the puppet hand controlling us. And the reality is, people need to know this, the World Health Organization, any treaty that comes into the United States is voted on by the United States Senate. You need a 2/3 vote in the United States Senate. So we got to get rid of Tammy. Then we got to get rid of Dick. Then we have to get rid of, around the country, we got to get rid of like the Mitt Romneys of the world that do not have our backs.
Yeah, they're just weak. They're weak sauce.
They're weak and they're fakers. And, be who you are. Like that guy running for governor. It's like, just say who you are, say what you are and stand for it and own it. Don't try and pretend that you're not what you are, because we need real people to say the real stuff. And with the World Health Organization, they want to control our health in the United States of America. Well, we're a sovereign nation. We are the leaders of the world. And so just for you, those of you who want to make sure that we can control this stuff, the WHO cannot just come in and do it. It's got to be voted on in the Senate. But to give you an indication, remember when Rand Paul put the bill forth about no masks on public transportation a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
Dick Durbin voted no. He wanted to keep us masked on transportation. And Tammy Duckworth didn't show up. She didn't show up. So how do you think they're going to vote when a treaty? Pardon?
Was she on a book tour?
She might have been on a book tour. I don't know what she was doing. She didn't, and she doesn't show up to a lot of votes. So she has double the no-show rate of any senator in the Senate. So when it comes to the WHO, we need good senators. And you people that are thinking about moving out of state, we've all thought about it, right? Like, have you thought about it? We've looked into it. And if you haven't personally, you know somebody who has. You can escape the governor and the crony politics of Illinois. But you cannot escape Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth. Dick and Duck will ruin your life even if you live in Florida, Tennessee, Arizona, wherever, because they're voting on things like the World Health Organization treaty that will come to a vote at some point in the Senate. And they're voting for the SCOTUS. And Tammy says that her next 6 years will be focused, if reelected, her sole focus would be codifying abortion into law. That's what she's going to focus on. When you list all of our problems in the country, that's what her number one focus is going to be. And she said that before that Roe v. Wade leak. So they're all in on all this stuff. They all know what's going on, and they're bad people doing bad stuff.
So Cherokee said she saw where Tammy supports the WHO treaty. I think that this is a great glimpse for people to see why the votes matter, why you need to look at the ballot. You are running as a Republican for the primary. Mail-in voting is happening now. And we have the June 28th primary. And so to vote for a dad who quit his job to run for U.S. Senate and take this leap, people will ask for the Republican ballot.
Yes.
Did you see Herschel Walker won the primary for Georgia? I didn't see that. That will be a big Senate race. Yep. And so he's amazing. So it's interesting to see some of these very interesting Senate races that are happening in the country. In Illinois, it's being completely overlooked. They did a poll. We always get overlooked. They did a poll a couple of weeks ago, and it says 72% are undecided in the Senate race. And so there are some people. So there's 7 candidates running on the primary, 7 of us. One of them is an establishment candidate. And I would caution people to be concerned about all the establishment candidates. We don't need more politicians. They're useless. They're useless. I don't have time for it, Matt. Ditto. So I don't want anybody. There's another guy that I did Polish radio the other day, and another great mom leader, Polina. She's do you know her? Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah. She's excellent. And she had this big event. She said that there was a candidate, and he's Polish. God bless him. He's a nice man, but he's telling people, like, I'm Polish, vote for me. I don't think anybody should vote for me because I'm a dad or any of those reasons. That's what only gives you a perspective on where I'm coming from. You all should look at all of them. And when I do these forums, I post the full video on YouTube and Facebook so you could see everybody. And the best thing we can do is look at all the candidates and find out who we believe is going to represent what we care about and support us and actually represent us in Washington, D.C., but also back here at home. Because I want to see our senators at the school board meetings. I want to see senators at awake meetings. Forget party and whatever. There are representatives. And they should be where we are. And that's what I will do as United States Senator for all of us. That's the job, in my view. That's awesome. And so Agnes said she loves Paulina too. I'm sorry, Casey. Yep. So yes, you were right, Matt. That was Casey asking the question about the WHO treaty. Very good. So people can go to Matt Dubiel, Matt, DUBIEL.com to learn more about your background and your campaign. They can donate there. What is your next event or big thing coming up where you'll be connecting with people?
So they can also text me. I give out my number so people can text me directly, and I will answer questions. You can send me stuff. A lot of people like to say things were maybe normal in Illinois, 312-847-1987. And so next thing I'm doing today is a radio interview with Sean Thompson on AM 560. That will be another way for you to share, with your family or somebody and say, hey, there's this guy I heard with Shannon and he's going to be on the radio. And I have a feeling the conversation might shift a little differently with Sean and be a little bit more focused on some other issues. So that would be a good thing for people, and you can share stuff. One of the great things about this live that you're doing with all these candidates is it gives people an opportunity to just share something with someone, and you don't have to get into the minutia of like all these wedge issues and stuff. So thank you for doing this, and I thank him for having me on. I'm trying to think of Saturday. I'm going to be there's a guy running for a local Senate seat, James Lawson, and he's doing this thing with food trucks, and I'll share it on my Facebook page. He's going to be in Plainfield and stuff. Max Solomon is going to be stopping out there at some point. I will stop out there at some point. I believe James is doing it with, for vets, or he's partnering with vets in some capacity. I'm not like, I don't have a scheduler or a campaign manager. So everything is in here or in my phone. And sometimes I miss what's going on. I have to look at the calendar, but those are the next couple things that are coming up. And I will be updating people also via text. Like if you text me your address and you wanted a yard sign, or you text me and you say, like, I want to know when you're going to be someplace, I can code that and say, okay, I'll text you the event the next time I'm going to be out. 312-847-1987.
That's great. Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you taking the time, and we will be sharing this at our website, at the hub page where we're doing these convos, and then at our blog. So thanks for sharing about why you took this leap, and I wish you luck and safety on the campaign trail. I'm praying for you and your family. And yes, thanks so much. So then tomorrow I'm going to have another Facebook Live. Check it out. I have all of the information for the upcoming ones at our Facebook page. And also want to remind people, June 18th, Saturday night here in Naperville, we're going to have our first anniversary for Awake Illinois. We're still taking sponsors, and there are limited tickets available. So feel free to come, and we're going to have some great speakers. And the charitable cause is Project Hood.
Is he going to be at that event?
To be determined. I can't confirm yet.
He's awesome.
He's amazing.
I mean,
yes, he may be coming down from the rooftop if he's not in DC. So we will see. But either way, he said that somebody from his organization will come, and they'll have a video if he can't be there. But I will confirm.
Yeah.
Yes, Pastor.
But yeah, it took me a minute to find it in there.
Rooftop pastor, and actually Corey DeAngelis is our keynote speaker, who's a national speaker on education from the American Federation for Children. So it's set to be great. Take a look at our website for that information. But Matt, thank you again, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, and all the moms and all the people involved at Awake, because it's powerful. Keep doing it. Everyone keep following. I mean, it's awesome, and we can't stop. They can't stop. No, I know you're not going to stop. They can't cancel us.